Where are you at the moment? Arizona?
Yeah, so we moved to Sedona a year ago, and we live up here in the Red Rock Mountains. So it's beautiful.
I've been to Sedona.
Yeah, it's magical.
Okay, I live magical Cape Town. So let's rock and roll. I'm ready to go. All fired
Terrific,
up.
terrific. Well, Rob Hersov, welcome to the Smoke Trail.
Thank you, Smoke. Lovely to see you again. I haven't seen you in person for a long time, but it's really lovely to reconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going down memory lane, and when you filled out your like pre-questionnaire, I was talking about some of the history and big moments for you, learning moments, and you talked about Sportle and raising $100 million during dotcom one, and that's how we actually connected, is because I raised, I think, a measly little 60 million for eSky, and you joined my European board to help me launch across Europe.
There we go. Reaching
So
out across continents.
yeah, and that was a heady time, right? It was pretty crazy, and I think we had different but parallel experiences and learned a lot during that time, and it really, it certainly taught me humility, while the hubris of raising big capital and doing all the stuff, and being with the big boys, and then the fall from the dot-com crash and all the things that went with that, and just picking up the pieces. As you said, you at one point thought maybe this is the end of my career, and I think I had the same feeling at a, in passing. It didn't last long, but I had the
Yeah.
same feeling for sure.
You dust yourself off, get up, and move on. It's like that beautiful poem by Rudyard Kipling, If. Every English schoolboy or Commonwealth schoolboy learned it. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. It's a beautiful poem.
It's a beautiful poem, and I love that sentiment. It's a lot of the work that I do these days. I do. I think I'm partners with Rob Follows, and we do M&A around the world. But when I'm not doing that, I'm spending a lot of time on spirituality and mindfulness, and a CEO asked me. I was speaking in Thailand a couple weeks ago, and asked me, well, what's in it for me? Like, why do I want to even think about this? And I'm like, well, how about this? What if you could, no matter what came at you, no matter what emotion, angry customer, angry person, happy, whatever they came at you, you had the ability to respond without emotion, that you could actually stay centered and stay present minded long enough to think about your options and pick the best option. Would that be better? And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely. I'm like, well, that's mindfulness.
And I mean, as you were saying it, I was thinking of myself, in moments where I get angry or I react in the wrong way, or, I kind of dream about something and you're in a half awake, half asleep, and you're thinking about something that worries you and you get angry or you've got some stress. And I've been stressed about something over the last 4 months and I've not handled it well. And, how do you center yourself all the time? It's like when you ask people, what's the goal of life and the aim of life? And they say happiness. It's not possible. You can't be happy all the time. You're not meant to be happy all the time. So, I don't know how one stays centered all the time, but you've got to try and bring yourself back to the
Yeah,
center
I,
without,
I think
making
that's right.
mistakes.
I mean, we're all human, right? So I think there's, unless you become the Buddha, everybody's going to have the moment of like, whoa, wow, this is like affecting me, right? But I think I loved your reference to the Stoic philosophy, and I'm no expert, but I also have a lot of affinity to Stoicism, and I love a lot of the thoughts there. And one of the most important things is the only thing we control is our own reaction to things, and all the other things that are outside of our control we don't worry about, right? That's the Stoic mentality, right? And I think it's easy to forget in the moment when you're in a situation. But if we can bring ourselves back, and there's lots of techniques, but one of the simple ways is just to take 3 deep breaths. Give yourself a little bit of space between stimulus and response.
Yeah, it's like if you've got a lot of meetings internationally and you've got to fly there, try and fly at least one night before so you can have a good sleep and not walk into meetings tired. And then if you've got really difficult things to deal with, or you want to send a response to something, try and sleep on it. It's great advice given, not always taken.
Yeah.
The last 4 months I've been very stressed about something, and I thought to myself, my wife said it's only money, okay, which is kind of easy to say if you've got lots of it, which we do have. But it was more than just money. It was I kept getting a different story every week, and I kept thinking to myself, can I do something about it or not? And I always felt like if I was on top of the guy, it would move it forward. But in retrospect, looking back, I don't know if I could have made any difference. It's one of those. It's easy to say, you know,
Yeah.
only deal with things that you can control, but there's a gray area, things where you think you could actually make a difference if you get involved. So there's always a gray area. It's never that easy.
Absolutely. There's always judgment and discernment, right? And it's about as we age, as we get more wisdom in our years, we hopefully develop a bit of ability to discern and just it's just and there's always going to be a gray area and there's no one right answer, right? So it's like you can't hold yourself to too high of a standard. You just like do the best you can with the information you have and move on.
So there's a wonderful description of gut instinct or instinct. It's the distilled essence of years of experience.
Hmm.
You just feel this is the right thing to do, but it's actually distilled essence of years of experience. That's what it is.
Yeah,
The
and
older you get, the more experienced you are. It's
I
funny. A
think
friend said to me the other day, he said he's made a lot of money and been very successful, but he's my age, 64, and he said he would be happily bankrupt wearing just his underwear to go back to age 40.
mm,
He said he would happily take all of his experience, give away everything he had, and go back to age 40 and start from beginning. But I know what he's saying. It's like with this amount of wisdom and experience and mistakes made and judgment and instinct, imagine 20 years earlier. Wow, what you could do, what you would do.
well, and I hear you, and I think when that gut instinct, some might call it intuition in some cases, and maybe that's
Yeah.
more the female version of it, right? But I think our wives, the women in our lives, are typically more aware of that. Like they're more conscious of what is intuition. They have a sense. They're like, don't do something with that guy. That's not a good business partner. Like my wife knows it all the time before I do. And I think men typically, we're out there, building our empires, doing our thing, and we're so in our ego mind that we don't pay attention to that side of us, but we
Well,
have it.
I have an example from you from last week, 10 days ago.
Yeah.
Okay. But actually, I've got an example from 4 days ago and 10 days. 4 days ago, I've been on a 3 week road trip going on all the big American podcasters, Patrick Bet David, Dave Rubin, Charlie Kirk,
Save the biggest one for last,
Trigonometry.
obviously, Rob.
Yeah, talking about South Africa, talking about
Yes.
trying
Yeah.
to tell people what's going on. And this public speaking has become a whole new area of my life, which is it's an obsession, a hobby, an addiction, and I love it. And I'm good at it. Or at
Yeah.
least I think I am.
You are.
But about 4 days ago, I was in London driving to a dinner, and I'd played golf that day with some wonderful friends I hadn't seen in years. It was such a wonderful day in the sun, and I was a bit snippy on the phone. And my beloved wife Katie in Cape Town said, "I think you're dehydrated," and I just felt like, how can she? She's not even with me. And then I thought, I am dehydrated. I probably haven't drunk much water today. How did she tell? It's like, wow,
Yeah.
from another, from 12 hours of flying away. And then 10 days ago, I had been invited to be on the Piers Morgan show. Now, as most people know, Piers Morgan's one
Yeah.
of the biggest
Sure.
interviewers, podcasters, television characters in the world. And I'd just done Patrick Bet David, David Rubin, Charlie Kirk, Laura Logan, all the big Americans. And it was, I know Piers, she played golf with him. And I got invited on his show. And I told my wife, Piers Morgan's invited me. Kind of, I made it now in England. And my wife went, I don't think you should do it. and my hair on my back went up. I was like, why is she trying to restrict me? Why? And she said, Rob, you are at your best one-on-one, being interviewed, interviewing,
Yeah. He has
debating.
like a panel, doesn't
But
he?
this,
Yeah.
right. And he
Yeah.
says, Piers is setting you up because he wants you and someone else versus two other people. Are there other people on the show? Was it just you? So I checked and I said, no, there are three others. Ernst Roots, who's in the same camp as me, and then this lady from South African Broadcasting Corporation I'd never heard of, and this idiotic 23-year-old DJ who's just a nonsense merchant called the Three Beanies, Dan Corder. He's an idiot. And my wife said, Piers he's setting all four of you up and he wants you to fight and beat each other up. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And because of my ego, I was still kind of like, I think I can do it. I think I can handle it. I know how to do it. And then I've been listening to my wife a lot more lately than before.
You
And I
you are
said,
getting
all right.
smarter.
I said, okay, all right, I won't do it. And then I recommended someone else to do it. And it was exactly as she predicted. It would have been in a clickbait for Piers.
Yeah,
So,
and you would have held your own, but like it may not have been like the best look of what you wanted to
correct.
right?
And I sent this beautiful message to Piers, a video note. I do lots of video notes. I said, Piers, I really appreciate you inviting me. I'd love to appear on your show. But if you want me one-on-one, I'm yours. But I'm not going to be clickbait for your show.
Yeah.
He hasn't responded. So that might be it. Might be over with Piers, unless he's listening to the smoke trail, which he should.
He should. I'm sorry, my little camera just kind of.
Yeah, it didn't look like you were wearing shorts, or are you?
I'm wearing shorts, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
But it just went
kidding.
kind of silly on me. All right, there we go.
But you're so right. My wife, she's very perceptive. She's got intuition. She's got spirituality, and she has something that I've never seen or heard of anyone. She was trained as a doctor, and she built a medical publishing business, which we sold successfully last year. I was a shareholder. But she has healing hands, and she has an incredible ability to do walking diagnoses. It's scary on the one hand, magical and beautiful on the other. She'll look at someone and say, I think that person has XYZ affliction.
Yeah.
And within 2 weeks, they announced that, and it's almost, beautiful and spooky at the same time. So she can look at me and say, you're tired, you're dehydrated. She can even do it on the phone. She's magical in her ability to read people. So
she's connected to the source, right? Like to the universe, right? And it's like it's a real thing. It's the field is real, and you don't have to believe in God or whatever, but like there's a higher power here, and
no question
are more connected to it than others. It sounds like she's totally connected, and in a healing way.
In a healing health way, she's the best I've ever. I mean, she's magical. Last week, one of my business partners, Nick French, was sick for 2 days. He was meant to come to London and meet me, and he was really, really sick. He said, I've never felt worse. And I messaged Katie and I said, Nick's supposed to come to London in 2 days. He's really sick. Can't you just call him and get a read on it? She listened to what his symptoms were and she said, go to hospital right now. Hospital. He went to hospital and diagnosed with swine flu.
And wow.
Over the phone, she was like, go to hospital right now.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I mean, she obviously she's tapped into a higher, whatever that is.
No question.
It's real. It's a real thing. There's a lot of that out here in Sedona. A lot of non-traditional healing and energies and whatnot, which is.
By the way, Smoke, you've got American Indian, heritage. Yeah. I know you have. And I aged 60 4 years ago. I've never had a nickname. Everybody's always had nicknames. I've never had a nickname. Never. I've been Rob, Robert. They tried Bobby, didn't stick. And I've ended up with the nickname, the Chief.
Okay.
Because I was at Africa Burn, which is a very beautiful spiritual. It's a Burning Man of Africa. It's beautiful. Yeah. And this friend of mine put a beautiful Indian headdress on me. And, I was staring into the distance and someone took a photograph. And it's a beautiful, beautiful photograph of me, the 1,000-mile stare, the beautiful Indian headdress on. And from then on, my nickname became the Chief. And I just thought I have to tell
That's
Smoke
great.
because he's,
That's great.
you know,
That's
yeah,
awesome. Well,
yeah.
speaking of birthday, I just remembered I went to your 40th birthday in Vegas. You guys
Yes, you
all
did.
flew in from London. I went, we met you from wherever we were, and that was a big gathering. It was a lot of fun.
40th birthday in Vegas,
Yeah,
50th birthday in Beijing, 60th in Cape Town. So,
nice.
you got to come to the 70th, which is in 6 years' time.
Send me the invite. I'm there, man. I'm there.
Okay.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your journey recently, right? Because you're obviously out there and you've become a important voice in a very important issue, I think, to the world. It's not just to South Africa. And I just wonder, I'm just not a political show, obviously, but I'm interested in what healing from a societal standpoint is like. You hear this rhetoric coming out of the political parties, and they're like, it sounds crazy from here. Like, it's like, wow, like, how would they even do that? And I've heard your interviews. I know, it's like there's an obvious a lot of, I mean, clearly transgressions, things that are like not right, they're happening. But I mean, there's a population there. There's all kinds of ethnic backgrounds, black, white, whatever. I'm not one who differentiates. I'm like, people are people. It's about consciousness, and we're all spiritual beings on a journey of remembering, is my view. But what does it take, and in terms of the situation there, to really get the discussion going to a more positive plane than the like craziness that
So,
we're seeing in
so
some of the videos.
I'll give you the human aspect, from my perspective and from the market's perspective, the human angle. 4 years ago, I made a speech at a business, and I've always liked public speaking, and I'm good at it. I think I am anyway. I made a speech at a business conference to 100 people in the room, and it went viral. And it went viral to an extent where hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people saw this. And it changed my life. It threw my life into a maelstrom, and my life has never been the same. And in South Africa, we have challenges other countries don't have: history, apartheid, and an existing
Yeah,
liberation movement turned government called the African National Congress, Nelson Mandela's party,
yeah,
that has run the country for 30 years. And for the first 14 years, the world said, we saved South Africa. South Africa is saved. It's heading in the right direction, and then turned their attention elsewhere. I'm just giving you the context.
yeah,
And from
yeah, yeah,
2008 to today, it has become a nightmare to be white or to be non-black, to be colored Indian, whatever minority. And the ANC government under Jacob Zuma and Cyril Ramaphosa, our current president, have turned the noose, the economic noose, onto the minorities and introduced racist and socialist laws and anti-American laws that is basically throttling the country. We get 1%
yeah,
economic growth, 2% population growth. We're going backwards. We're deindustrializing. The country's being looted. And it's only because our government, and then I'll wrap up the politics side, it's only because our government hasn't had the world spotlight on it. They've been getting away with almost murder. They're getting away with farm murders, but economic
yeah,
genocide. And 4 years ago, I made the speech. It went viral. And I had people screaming at me, death threatening me, calling me a racist. And then my father said to me the most powerful words that I have heard in my life: Rob, I've never been more proud of you for doing and saying what other people can't afford to do and say. And at that point, I
yeah,
decided I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to give up. And fast forward 4 years hence, every day I go down to the shopping market, I fill my car with gas, I'm walking down the street, and I have people of all shapes and sizes, colors and hues and cultures coming up to me, the average person in the street, and saying, thank you for giving us a voice. But on the flip side, all my big corporate chieftain billionaire buddies are scared to meet me, turn their backs on me, or badmouth me. because their vested interests are at threat. And what I've done is I've managed to get many other people to get the courage, the backbone to stand up and start speaking out. And last week,
Yeah.
as my international tour of podcasters was ending, my wife said to me, she was in tears, and she said, I'm tired of being scared. I worry about your security. I don't want you to be bumped off like everybody says, because people have been saying to her, it's amazing Rob has not been bumped off yet. And
Yeah.
she said, the children are afraid. I'm afraid. I love you too much to lose you. And I jokingly said, well, there's lots of money and I won't know if I'm bumped off, but it was the wrong answer. It was not what I was meant to have said. So,
Yeah.
I may be reaching the end of this South African political podcasting because others are standing up. And it's a form of leadership, but
Yeah.
it's also for me the first time that I've actually been truly, truly proud of what I've done. Because as you know, I was born into a very wealthy family, given every privilege. I've been to Harvard Business School, Goldman Sachs. I've met the good and the great. I've made amazing friends like you. I'm the luckiest human on the planet. But every time I looked in the mirror, I felt it had just come too easy. Even though I've taken advantage of every opportunity.
Yeah, and Rob, I mean, obviously, there's lots of people that start out with a great advantage and then squander it, and you didn't. You went out and you took huge risks. Sportal is a great example. Like, you didn't have to do that. You put yourself out there. It
failed, and it failed.
But I think you don't give yourself enough credit for being independent. But I understand where your mind is, and this feels genuine and like authentic from your heart, that you're just doing what you think is right. It's not necessarily in your personal interest.
Do you know there's a poem, and it's the only thing that I haven't learnt by heart, but I put it on my iPhone, and it's called The Man in the Glass.
Yeah.
And it's by Peter Dale Winnerow, I think it is. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful poem. I'll just read you the last four sentences, okay? But your viewers can go and I'll read you the whole thing. It's 10 lines, but
read the whole thing. Read the whole thing, and we'll put it in the show notes too.
The Man in the Glass. When you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, then go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't a man's father, mother, or wife whose judgment upon him must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in life is the man staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear to the end, and you've passed your most dangerous, difficult test, if the man in the glass is your friend. You can fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but the final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass.
Beautiful.
And I got little tears building up in my eyes because it's so poignant, and it's the first time this public speaking, this standing up and telling the truth and taking hits from all sides, financial, social, death threats, deplatforming. But I've looked in the mirror and I said, I've done the right thing and I believe in myself. And it's, it's a call. In some ways, it's a calling. If your viewers are very spiritual, it's my calling, and I've fulfilled it.
I feel that. I can feel it, and I love that poem. And by the way, I wrote. I'll have to dig it up. It's a few years old, but I wrote something around that poem a while back, and I'll put it in the show notes and I'll send it to you. But I love that. It's so true. Look, it's about recognizing what's in our core, right? It's your kind of uncovering your true self. And for me, that's a spiritual journey, but you can call it whatever you want to call it. It's about discovering what is true and genuine in your heart and living to that. And I often say, there's a guy who gave an amazing talk at YPO, the Global Leadership Conference in December, or in DC, and I was helping coach because I did the talks last year. I did my own talk, and then this guy was getting ready to speak, and he's got a beautiful message, and he's really amazing. He grew up homeless, and he like scrapped himself out of this, situation and became this really successful entrepreneur. And he's still only in his 20s. So he's super young, super successful. And he was like negative self-talking himself, like before the talk. And so we were backstage and he was like, yeah, he's just kind of like that little negative talk that he probably didn't even notice, but he just was doing. And I'm like, hey, hold on a second. And I pull him aside and said, listen, you can't do that. You can't say negative things to yourself. You've got to you got to say positive things before you get out and talk to the rest of the world. And I said, and one of the techniques that you can use is go look in the mirror and stare at yourself. Don't break eye contact, and tell yourself all the great things that you are, you represent, you do, whatever. That's harder than it sounds. It's pretty hard to do. But he was like, man, I could never do that. I'm like, trust me, try it. It takes practice, but it's real. You have to be pleased with your own actions. And we are vibrational. We're energetic beings. And no matter what you put onto the outside world, the truth is always evident. So our higher self knows if we're being genuine or not. And when you're genuine and in your heart, like, okay, this is me speaking from the heart. Everyone knows that. Like it's a vibrational thing, Rob. It's not even it's like your wife's healing, like her knowing what people have.
Yeah.
The truth is bigger than anything else, and people feel it.
She's extraordinary. Even the animals in our house gravitate to her. And and it's not just because she's the provider of food, but even sitting at the dining room table, they sit next to her, they follow her, the cat adores, loves her, and it's magical. I look at it and go, there's something magical about her.
Yeah. Well, you guys have to come. You guys got to come to Sedona and do some hikes with us. And it sounds like she'll get along great with Anitra.
The mesas, the beautiful red mesas. Yeah,
exactly.
But we were talking about happiness earlier, and I've been reading a great book called Philosophy and Life by A.C. Grayling. It's a very good book, and I opened a chapter. I don't read it, beginning to end. I pick chapters on life, death, spirituality, and things like that. And it's a couple of things really, reached me. And the one was, if you do the same thing every day, get up in the morning, go to the gym, get the kids packed out to school, do the work, the lunch, you do. Have you lived one day or many days? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of hit me quite hard because I'm not one that's very good at being in a rut, scheduling. I know when I'm high energy, which is in the morning because I love going to bed early, and I know I'm slow down in the evening, and when I have to prioritize my work, the reading the shareholders agreement mid-morning is about the right time because then I can concentrate. Being creative is from 6 in the morning till 9. I've kind of worked out my pattern at age 64. But the thing about happiness that struck me the most was a friend said to me, happiness is 3 things: something to do, someone to love, something to look forward to. And if there's a very old person, often they've nothing to do. They don't have jobs or hobbies anymore.
Yeah.
They might have lost many of the people they love, or the person they love. They might have lost them. And, it's very hard for them to look forward to anything. And at that point, they will probably pass on. They'll die.
Yeah.
And then we, as younger people, or even younger than us, are so busy during the day. You're busy for the sake of being busy, or you're trying to make money, or trying to make a way in life. But those 3 things, if you can have those 3 things at all times, at a 7 to 10 out of 10, something to do, someone to love, something to look forward to, you are happy. Happiness is not this thing that you're 24/7.
No, I love that. And I think, I use maybe different words, but I think it aligns with that nicely. And it's what I like to say is, and again, this is like getting out of our ego mind, which is what we always do, right? Like, I mean, we're always like thinking. getting out of that and go with your heart. And what that means to me is where you're in it, what gives you energy? If it gives you energy, it's like, okay, the universe is saying do that. And if it doesn't, don't do it. And every time I've gone against that feeling, it's been like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Or like, I mean, like, oh, yeah, maybe I learned something, but it wasn't something that I should have done something different. Right. But every time I follow that energetic, like, oh, this feels like I need to do this, it's right. And I think, and it usually has to do with, love and doing something that's important that you feel like it's important to do, right? And I agree. Like, that's the point of life. And for those of us, and we who have had a degree of success, and been able to do kind of our own thing whenever we want, you know, it's really about that. It's not about the success. It's about the being able to choose to do things with people you care about that you feel matter, right?
Do you know, it's interesting because on this trip, a friend said to me, I was having a dinner, and he said, he's 10 years older than me, and he said, I have lived an extraordinary life and I've done everything anyone would want to have done, and I'm happy, and I now live for my children and my grandchildren. But if I were to die today, I would have had a great life and I'm satisfied and happy. And I thought, I feel the same way.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't want to die.
Yeah, yeah,
And
no.
but
My preference
this, yeah,
is not to die for just for the record.
correct.
Sure. But I'm with you. Like, yeah, I mean, and that
So, thank you, you know.
yes, thank you. Exactly.
Thank you, God. Thank
Being
you,
being in
everything.
gratitude, right, Rob? Being in gratitude is the feeling. And if you're in gratitude, more good things come. That's the thing that took me a long time to understand, is because I was seeking, I came from lack. I grew up in a very different situation where, with a lot of childhood trauma that, I've recently uncovered and kind of gotten through. But I'm like, okay, what drove me was lack and seeking, and, it made me go take big risks. It made me do things, that a lot of people wouldn't do. And I was like, whatever, I got to do this. And it took me a long time to go, wait a minute, I have everything I need. I had it already, before, but I didn't know it.
But you know, another thing my wife did to me here on the path was she minimalized me. So we were living in London. We made an economic decision, political decision to sell our house. And we sold it at the top of the market for the wrong reason. Okay, how good is that? But anyway, sold the house, and we were moving to a rental house in London. And my wife said, "Why are we moving what looks like 1,000 of your books that you never read?" And I go, "Well, I love my books." She said, "You don't love them enough to read them. Why are we moving 1,000 books? Okay, and your wine cellar, and it's like we haven't got room at the next house." And to cut a long story short, from then on till today, I became a minimalist.
Yeah.
And when I proposed to her, she said to me, she said, "I thought you'd never ask." I was in a tree in Germany hunting wild boar. She was standing next to me in the snow. And, and she said, "I thought you'd never ask. I'd love to marry you, but if you ever give me a diamond ring, jewelry, watches, or anything, I'll sell them on eBay and give the money to my parents." And I said, "That's interesting. Why?" She said, "Why should De Beers tell me this shiny stone is worth anything? Why should Hallmark cards tell me tomorrow's Mother's Day? It's just
Yeah.
marketing." And cut a
Yeah.
long story short, I became a minimalist. I
Yeah.
only wear blue and white. Look, blue. This is blue. I only wear blue and white. I have no watches. Gave them all away. Gave them to my sons. I've very few books that I've kept. We don't collect art. We don't collect anything. And the only things that matter to us are big houses, money in the bank, and great experiences. Memories for the rocking chair, I call them.
Yeah.
And it's you sit together, you're with friends, and you say, "We were in the desert and this happened," or and
Yeah.
and my wife says one of the I'm making this up now, one of the many reasons she married me, that's probably very few, is that she'll ask me, "What did you do today?" And I'll turn a very ordinary story into something very, very funny. So my life is made up of great, great, great experiences. And
Yeah.
and that's a beautiful thing. Being a minimalist means possessions are not unimportant to me. I mean, I only own a car because
Yeah.
I have to have a car and to drive around it.
Yeah.
But everything else is just,
Yeah.
you like this picture, you can have it. We don't, it's not, we buy it because we like it, not because we collect it. And it
Yeah.
clears your mind. It's a
It really
liberating
does.
thing.
It's the, there's so much in society that's been glamorized, and whether it's stuff or it's, celebrity or whatever. Like I'm good friends with Kenny Chesney, the country singer, and he has a residency at the Sphere right now in Vegas. So I went on Wednesday night and went and saw him. It was beautiful. It was an amazing show, by the way. The Sphere is incredible. It's like mind-blowing technology. And then we had lunch yesterday, he's just like the humblest, nicest, genuine person. And honestly, like, we have it in a private room because he's really well known, and people come up to him all the time. But he's just a great guy. And I look at him, he's just a friend of mine. Happens to have a giant stage, and he's got all these. But it's like the glamorization of everything. It once you get over that or get beyond that or whatever, it's like it's such a freeing thing. I love what you said. You're free because, like, right now we spent the last year, we got rid of our house in California. We went to Sedona because on a whim, I said I want to go to Sedona, and we said, well, before we decide which house we want, let's just try all the different areas. So we've been literally living in like Airbnbs in
Fantastic.
different for a year. So we had one for 3 months, then we had a couple short terms, then we had one for 5 months. Now we're in another short. So we're like, now we've lived all over town. We actually met people in these different areas, and I know which
What
trail.
fun.
Yeah, it's been wild. But I mean, honestly, like, I'm ready to settle down. But it's been like, oh, we really don't have our stuff. Like we have like the minimalist stuff. Talk about minimalist. We have almost nothing.
So there's a billionaire friend of mine who's from Switzerland called Nicholas Berggruen, and he
Yeah,
lives in America. I think he's called the Barefoot Billionaire. He
yeah,
doesn't own any houses, any cars, anything, and he goes from hotel to hotel in a private jet, but I think he charters it. And
yeah,
then each hotel he stays in the same room in a suite, and they bring out his clothes for that. He doesn't have any possessions. It's
yeah,
liberating. It's fabulous. So
yeah.
um, so I don't know how I got onto that subject,
No,
but
no,
it's an important,
it's cool.
important. I want to say Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah,
So Marcus Aurelius, the greatest Roman emperor, was a Stoic. So
yeah,
Stoicism began in ancient Greece. Zeno died off, reappeared, and then it had its prime time with Marcus Aurelius. He was the most powerful Roman emperor. He was the richest man on earth and the most powerful man on earth. It was at the peak of the Roman Empire.
yeah,
And he would get up every morning at the same time, early in the morning. He would do his work. He was kind, generous, believed in people, and did not believe in possessions. And if you ask me who would I like to have met that is long gone, it would be Marcus Aurelius, the man who had everything, the most
yeah,
powerful man on earth, the most richest man on earth. And yet he lived the life of a Stoic. He practiced Stoicism, and it's a way of life. It's not
yeah.
a religion, it's a way of life. And you asked me about my spirituality, and I guess you meant religion. And
Well, I actually no.
yeah,
I think you interpreted it correctly. I really, I mean, I've been a student of learning about all the religions because there is truth in all of them, and there's also a bunch of human stuff
confusion.
got layered on that confuse the real message. So, like, I'm not talking about religion, but it's more of a state of mind. And it's a way of being, and that's why I totally resonated with your Stoic comment. I thought that made sense to me.
So my family. I mean, on my father's, I wasn't brought up particularly religious. My mother was a Christian Scientist, and for those who don't know, it was a religion. It's not Scientology. Christian Science was founded by Mary Baker Eddy, a lady in
Yeah,
Boston, I think in the 1920s. I
yeah,
get the date wrong. And at one point, it was the wealthiest, one of the most influential religions on earth. So,
yeah,
and the premise of Christian Science is that God is love. At all the Christian Science reading rooms around the world, it says God is love. And if you boil every religion down to its absolute basic tenet, it's God is love. And I then went to an
yeah,
Anglican school, and then I lost my religious path. But instead of saying I'm an atheist or an agnostic or I don't believe, I just say that I have an open mind and an open heart and an open soul. If religion does find me, or if a God, if there is God, finds me and gives me my instructions and my calling, and I'm waiting to be called. I'm open-minded, and I like to think
Yeah.
of myself like that, as ready to be filled with the love of a
Yeah.
God or religion, you know. But till then, I'm
Well,
making my
I love
path.
that. Look, God is love, and that is my understanding as well. And when you follow your heart, and when you stand up and you speak out and you do what you feel is right, you are already being called. That is God talking to you through you.
Yeah, I think it
And
is.
so you may not recognize it, but that's what's happening. And so you're already there. You just still like that's one of the biggest. So a great Christian mystic, Meister Eckhart, who was in the like late 1260s to like early 1300s in Germany, but he very learned man. He was, ran the theology department at one point at the University of Paris, which at the time was the most important. And he was, very high up in the church, and he recognized one of his famous quotes, which I love, is, the eye with which I see God sees me. In other words, we are all divinity. There's no God outside of us.
It's
We
within
are,
us.
yes, it's within. And he
God is
was
love. God is within us. Yeah.
heretical to the church at the time. He was because he was so strong. They didn't prosecute him fully, but like they were there. That was when they were burning people up, right? Like it wasn't a very popular statement, but it's right. If you ever you check him out, you might enjoy it. But it's like it's not about like the religion. It's about recognition of our self, of God in self and in each other. And that's that's look the troubles we have around the world, the troubles you guys have in South Africa. It's a level of consciousness, and as people who are of a higher level of consciousness, which is recognizing the divinity in all of us, is and that there's love all over, and it doesn't really matter who they are, what they look like. It's all one, and you have to treat everyone like you're treating yourself and not any differently. And that's how we rise up. And it sounds like, it's it sounds all nice and like, yeah, that's never going to happen. Well, but you know what? It only takes a few people, because the power of a higher level consciousness is magnitudes. It's a logarithmic scale. It's magnitude stronger than the lower levels. So people who are operating in shame and anger and emotion and, chanting and doing these things, yeah, they can be dangerous, but they're living in a very low vibrational, environment. And as you raise your consciousness, you're affecting the entire world. We are in an energetic world. So what you're doing is very important, and I applaud you for your
Thank
efforts.
you.
And I really, Rob, it's great to reconnect, and I want to hang out with you guys at some point along the way again. But
Let's do it, Smoke. Let's
yeah,
do it. I'll come back. I'm going to come back to the US. I think I'm going to be back in August,
yeah.
and I'll tell you why. There's a there's I don't know if you follow UFC,
Oh well,
Ultimate
I
Fighting
know
Challenge.
about it. Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I hadn't followed it until a South African called Dricus du Plessis was fighting for the world middleweight championship, and then I got involved, and I met him, and he's such a wonderful, humorous, generous, compassionate, loving fellow who's the UFC world middleweight champion. And it's
Wow.
such a, if you think of somebody who has to fight at that level, and you can basically use pretty much any form of fighting. And
Yeah,
yet on the flip side, you just want to hug the guy when you meet him. And
yeah.
it's such an extraordinary, juxtaposition. And I'm going to come and watch him fight in Chicago
Oh
in
wow.
in August. Maybe we'll go together.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Let's talk offline about that. Maybe we can get our old buddy Billy to show up and
Billy
get
UGI.
out
Billy
of his.
emailed me an hour ago.
Oh, he did. All right. Well,
Yeah.
we'll have to drag him out of his house in Atlanta.
But here's the thing about what I'm doing, this podcasting and this public speaking. I've got all my businesses, and life could not be better. there is no real upside to doing this other than the man in the glass.
Yeah.
Because I've lost friends, I've lost business contacts, I've lost millions of dollars, but I still feel I'm doing the right thing. And here we are on the edge of the bottom tip of Africa, the white tribe of Africa. Nobody loves us. Nobody's coming to riding to our rescue, and we are under serious, serious threat. But this is where I want to be. And my wife said to me a couple of years ago, she's a New Zealander. The safest place in the world is New Zealand. South Africa is not so safe. And she said to me, I really love this place. It's worth fighting for. And I said, and then I'll fight for it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to leave. The children love it here. She loves it here. And so I think I'm going to live here and die here. And I love this country and I want to fight for it and help make it the place it deserves to be.
That's beautiful. And from all of us, and I'm sure everyone listening, my prayers and love are with you guys and everyone. Just to it doesn't need to be that way. There's lots of inequities and things. You know what? There's ways to solve it. It's just rising tide raises all boats, and that's the right solution. It's about how do we create abundance? How do we create more? Not how do we, cut and hurt the people that are productive. That makes no sense anywhere in the world.
And the answer is love conquers all.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. It's hard to practice it all the time, but
yep,
it is so true.
Awesome. Well, Rob, thank you. I appreciate you joining me, and this is a lot of fun and great to just connect and do this with people I love and haven't seen in a long time.
I miss you. I love you, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. See you, brother.
Cheers, buddy.